Hi, my name is Shari Caston, and I am the Autism Specialist for Franklin County Public Schools. I'm also a board certified behavior analyst. Today, I am here with Heather Reger, our Special Education Coordinator, and Julie Realmuto, our cluster teacher. And we're here to discuss how the Nest program came to Franklin County Public Schools, and more specifically, the implementation of that program in Franklin County schools.
Hi. Today I'm going to talk about how Franklin County Public Schools got involved with the ASD Nest program. So in 2014-15, Franklin County Public Schools participated in Cohort 2 of the Autism Service Improvement Plan grant through VCU. Dr. Stacy Carr and Cindy Petoniak of VCU visited the ASD Nest program in 2015 in New York City. Then the ASD Nest program was presented to Franklin County Public Schools Assistant Superintendent. She then visited New York City herself and presented the program to Burnt Chimney, who had 3 students with autism that were rising from 2nd to 3rd grade. The team from Burnt Chimney then got to travel to New York City to meet and train with Dorothy Siegel, one of the founders of the program, and visit a Nest classroom in East Harlem. Franklin County Public Schools then began its journey of full inclusion for our students with autism in the 2015-16 school year.
So why Burnt Chimney? At the time, there were identified 3 students who were rising into 3rd grade with autism. We already had an autism early childhood special education classroom at our school, and at one point, those children would be transitioning into kindergarten. Our staff had an understanding of evidence-based practices. There was buy-in from our principal, the teachers, and our speech-language pathologists. And then there was a buy-in from other faculty and staff who were familiar with evidence-based practices and best practices for students with autism. Teacher selection. What would make a great team? Well, the principal and the director of special education collaborated on staffing. A lot of thought was put into which teachers would work best together. Thought was put into which teachers would make a smooth transition into the Nest model, and also which teachers had good working relationships with the students that were going to transition into this classroom.
It really was a natural fit once the team was selected. A general education teacher was selected. She was duly endorsed in elementary education and special education. She had a good working relationship with the teachers in the building, as well as the special education teacher that was chosen to work in the Nest program the first year, and she had good student relationships. The special education teacher that year was also duly endorsed in special education and elementary education, also had a good working relationship with the teachers in the building, as well as the general education teacher that was chosen for the Nest, and a good working relationship with the students in the building. The cluster teacher that year was the special education coordinator. She was already on site working as the special education coordinator, and had a good working relationship with both teachers selected for the program and a good working relationship with the students in the building. The speech and language pathologist was a transfer within the division. She came from another elementary school within the division. She had a good working relationship with teachers in her building and quickly with the teachers on the new team for the Nest program, and a very good working relationship with students. Funding for the ASD Nest program was division funded. There was no grant money. All of the money for the program came through Franklin County Public Schools. There was one new hire. A special education teacher needed to be hired to replace the special education teacher that was moving into the Nest program. And there was one new hire for speech and language pathologist within the division.
So how did we receive training at Burnt Chimney? Prior to the Nest classroom, we took 3 online courses through VCU, the Foundations of ASD, Evidence-Based Practices, and Positive Behavior Supports. We also participated in live trainings. We visited New York City in the spring and with Dorothy Siegel at NYU and had a live training. We also, in the summer prior to the start of the school year, had a live training from Dr. Stacy Carr and Cindy Petoniak. They went over the implementation of a 3-tier system of supports and also touched base on the social development intervention program. Our speech and language pathologist traveled to New York City for a week-long social development intervention training. There was a professional learning community that was established and peer supports. We even had 2 special visits from Dorothy Siegel and Brandy Stanfield Hobbs once we implemented our program that first year.
We also received a great deal of support from VCU. They facilitated the 3 online courses and encouraged the teachers to all take and complete those courses before the school year began. They facilitated the live trainings. Dr. Stacy Carr and Cindy Petoniak came and visited with us often during that beginning year and setup. They helped to develop the professional learning community and were great peer supports. And they supported our weekly team meetings. During that first year, Cindy came each week to every meeting when we case conferenced the students. She came and did observations and had great feedback and supported us in getting everything up and running. We also did a pre and post knowledge check with all participants in the program. We used the guideposts and talked about what we were familiar with in our classrooms, what we thought we needed to add, and what we were unfamiliar with, and then looked at that again after the first year to see how we had grown.
One important part of the program is the classroom checklist, which is the Tier 1 classroom checklist. This checklist is used to monitor implementation of strategies and supports. It's meant to be used in all ASD Nest classrooms, and it should be evident when someone were to walk in and observe. It ensures that strategies and supports are implemented with fidelity. It enhances the professional development of teachers and other staff. It's used along with a 45-minute observation, and at the end of that observation, there's feedback and discussion on which supports were evident and which supports may be needed put in place to help support students in the classroom.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the classroom setup and what a classroom's going to look like if you were to walk into an ASD Nest classroom. When you walk in, you're going to notice that busy areas are covered. You're not going to see shelves that are full of things that may be distracting. There will be paper or curtains over those areas. You're going to see curtains on the windows to kind of diminish the light. You're going to see very specific bulletin boards where the students, it's going to be very evident where the students can look to see where math is happening and where reading is happening and what is the purpose of each area. You're only going to see necessary instructional materials on the walls. Anything that is not being taught at that time will come down, and only things that are being taught will be up on the walls. The student's point of view is going to be considered. A kindergarten classroom is going to look different than a 5th grade classroom. Where things are posted is going to be very different. The workspaces are going to be obvious. You're going to be able to tell where the class works on reading and where the class works on math. You should notice a break area or a calming area in the classroom, a place where any student in the classroom can go for a little bit to, if they're feeling overwhelmed, and just take a minute to get themselves back together. You're going to notice that the lighting in the room is modified. It may look, the lights may be off, the overhead lights may be off, and there may be lamps on, or you may notice that the lights are covered to kind of dim and muffle the fluorescent light. The visual stimuli is going to be minimized by covering displays. Their auditory sensitivities are going to be addressed. You may see children wearing headphones. You may see tennis balls on the bottom of the desks or something to mute the noise. You will notice that there's a spot for heightened need for movement. There might be a wiggle area in the room, or even outside, right outside the classroom door. You might notice the teacher pull up and do a movement break in the middle of a lesson. The whole class may get up and play a game of Simon Says. And then you're going to notice that sensory and motor needs are being met. You're going to see clear areas to walk in the classroom and be able to get around the classroom easily and know where you're supposed to go at all times. Here's a peek. These 3 pictures are our first year, the 3rd grade classroom. You'll notice in the first one, you can see the curtains on the windows. The colors were very specifically chosen that year. Just 2 to 3 different colors were suggested. You can see a schedule on the wall in the first picture in the back. That was the classroom schedule. The curtains over the tops of the cubbies are blocking out teacher supplies so the students are not distracted by what's up above the cubbies. Even at the top of the cubbies, you can see that the symmetry was planned. The things in the totes were alternated with the books so that it was pleasing to the eye and calming to the students in the classroom.
Okay, so student planning. There is a Tier 1 checklist for individual student planning. It's used to identify strategies and supports that may be necessary for a student to be successful in the ASD Nest classroom. It also aids in development of effective interventions. It is done prior to a case conference, and at that time you look at the Student 1 checklist and determine which of those supports you would need to add, which of those supports you would need to modify, or which of those supports you should continue. And then at your weekly case conference meeting, the transdisciplinary team sits down and discusses the student based on their Tier 1 individual student planning sheet.
Some of the other basic supports that are used, some Tier 1 supports, are visual supports. You're going to see things like 5-point scales that deal with voice volume. 1 being there's no talking in the classroom, 5 being an emergency voice. Initially, you're using and priming the kids and showing them, what these different numbers mean. Eventually, you get to a point where you just need to show them a number, and they remember where their voice volume would be, or how big their problem is. You're going to see a daily class schedule posted every day, and that schedule is going to be fluid. It's going to exactly follow what the day looks like. Surprises might even be built in to kind of work on some of the flexibility for the children in the classroom. Mini schedules are very important. Each academic subject is going to be broken down into what is that particular day going to look like in reading, and what is that day going to look like in math, so the students know what to expect, they know where they are in that subject, and they know when it's going to be over. Task sequencing boards, you're going to see things like first then boards, and what's going to happen first, when is my break coming, if needed. And those kind of things are going to be very visible. And then you will see visual aids to supplement verbal directions. It's as simple as writing down what the verbal directions were if needed, or pictures to support those verbal directions if the children are younger and can't read. Here are some examples of those. The first is a schedule, daily schedule. The times in that particular schedule are posted, but that is not necessarily something that has to be done. Some children are really rigid on times, so sometimes that flexibility, it's nice to not have the times posted if you need to. The middle picture is a mini schedule for a spelling class. Obviously, the child can then see exactly what's going to happen during spelling and know where they are. You can build some choices into that mini schedule as well. If the order doesn't matter, then that may help some children. The next is a first then board. What do I need to do first before I can have a little bit of a break or earn some time? The next slide shows a picture of a self-regulation scale. This particular child, this was designed for one particular child. This child really struggled with when he was feeling overwhelmed. So he himself circled these words on the chart and put the little star around the number 3 to realize that's where I need a break. That's where I'm going to need to walk away and take a break. So that's an example of a 5-point scale for self-regulation. The middle one is the voice volume scale, which is used actually in every classroom in the building, but very heavily used in the Nest classroom. And the how big is my problem scale, which is helpful for all children. Do we need to cry over dropping our pencil on the floor or somebody's papers on my desk? Is that a 1 problem or a 5 problem? And then finally, the last slide here is showing you an example of a break area. This one was actually posted outside the classroom door. There was tape on the floor to show where the student should stand, and they would take a timer outside the door and work on these brain breaks for a few minutes. These were switched out weekly, so there were different things, and every child in the classroom was allowed to go use this little wiggle spot if needed. And then our calming area. This was the calming area in our classroom that first year. In that calming area, there were fidgets and books and notebooks for kids to write on, but it was a place that anybody in the classroom could go if need be. They had break cards on their desks that they could pull out and just put on their desks if they needed to go sit in the calming area for a few minutes and regroup.
Okay, some instructional strategies. One would be the use of positive behavioral instructions, phrasing things in a positive way to students. Also, it's important to use declarative language. Provide opportunities for students to make choices. If you have 4 things that need to be accomplished in reading today, Okay, which one would you like to do first? Give them the opportunity to make some choices. Academic priming is important, as we touched on earlier. If there are difficult subjects for students, they may need some priming prior to that academic class for the day so that they're ready and feel more comfortable. Instructional grouping, grouping students based on their need, based on peer supports. Also giving them a role in their group so that they know what's expected when they are working with a group of students. Small group activities. This is a great way to really bring in that co-teaching model. You divide the class into small groups, and each teacher has an opportunity to work with the small groups, and they can be placed in groups based on their academic needs. Peer-based supports are important for students. They can work with that positive role model and get some positive behaviors and modeling from another student in the classroom. Also modifying the activity or tasks for the student. Again, as we touched on earlier, that could be something as simple as a different type of pencil or pen that they may use to feel comfortable writing. I don't want to use a pencil, I'd rather use a blue marker. If that's how we can accomplish the task, then that would be okay with the teacher and the student. Modifying the task, especially if it is too difficult for the child. Incorporate their interests is important as well. If the student is interested in trains, could there be an activity for addition and subtraction where they want to count trains, or for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, whatever it may be, incorporate their interests, what they like. And then also provide support during transitions. Stopping one activity and starting another activity could be difficult for some students. So is there a song that you could play to cue the students, using a timer that's visual so that they can see how much time is left? Or even as simple as drawing a rectangle on their paper and coloring in how much of the task they've accomplished and how much they have left to go before the task will be completed.
So what does the Nest program look like at Burnt Chimney Elementary today? There are 2 Nest classrooms at Burnt Chimney Elementary. One is a first grade classroom. It has 13 students, 2 of whom have IEPs for autism. And one is a second grade classroom with 14 students, 4 of whom have IEPs for autism. Our original group has transitioned on to the middle school with some support. We did a training with the middle school teachers and talked about some of the strategies that were successful with each one of these individual students. We also had sent them on with a transition portfolio that touched on each area of their day, from PE to the school bus to the cafeteria to assemblies, where teachers could read and find out how these students had in the past reacted to these situations and possibly predict a little bit and be prepared for them as they transitioned into 6th grade. We would like to establish more Nest classrooms as time goes on.
Okay, so that's the end of part 2. In part 3, we will share with you the SDI, or Social Development Intervention Program, and the progress of our Nest students today at Burnt Chimney Elementary School. We encourage any questions you may have, and we'll see you next time.